Look up at the night sky for a second. Really look at it. Not the romantic version from movies, not the colorful NASA images you've seen online, but the raw experience. Black background, tiny points of light, silent, still, almost flat. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. What if what you're looking at isn't space at all? What if it's an interface? Every video game, every simulation, every artificial world humans have ever built shares one rule. The environment always looks bigger than the player. Vast landscapes, endless horizons, objects you can see but never reach. Because the moment you reach the boundary, the illusion collapses. From childhood, we're taught a story. Space is infinite. The universe has no edge. It just keeps going forever in every direction. And yet, strangely, no one has ever been there. No human has ever touched the stars. No probe has ever escaped the system we're in. We've been staring at the same unreachable lights for thousands of years. And here's where the question starts to get dangerous. Is that because the universe is too big? Or because we were never meant to leave? Think about how simulations work. You don't build infinite detail everywhere. You render what the player can see, what matters, what's observable. Everything else is suggestion, background, decoration. Now look at our universe again. Most of it is invisible to us. We're told it's made of dark matter and dark energy, things we can't see, can't touch, can't measure directly. Over 95% of reality is basically labeled unknown. And we just accept that. That alone should bother you. But it gets worse. Physics itself admits there are limits, hard limits. Speed of light, event horizons, cosmic expansion accelerating faster than anything can catch up to. Galaxies slipping away forever. Regions of space we will never observe, no matter how advanced we become. That's not just inconvenient. That's suspicious, because boundaries are a defining feature of every closed system. Imagine a fish in an aquarium. The glass is invisible to it. The fish sees endless water until suddenly it doesn't. The barrier isn't part of the fish's understanding of reality. It's just how things are. Now replace the fish with humanity. Replace the glass with the universe itself. What if the reason space feels so empty, so silent, so unreachable is because it's not a place meant to be explored? Modern science tells us we'll likely never leave our solar system, not realistically, not in any meaningful way. Even traveling at light speed, which we can't, would still trap us inside a tiny bubble of the cosmos. So we're effectively locked in, observers inside a box staring at walls we mistake for infinity. And once you see that, the silence of the universe starts to feel less mysterious and more intentional. Why is there no signal, no visitors, no undeniable evidence of anyone else? Maybe it's not that no one is out there. Maybe we're simply not allowed to see beyond the interface. Throughout history, humans have always questioned the sky. But interestingly, ancient civilizations didn't describe space the way we do. They didn't talk about infinite voids or expanding universes. They talked about layers, domes, realms, structures. Cultures that never communicated with each other all describe the heavens as something solid, mechanical, or ordered. A ceiling, a firmament, a wheel. A system that moved, not chaos stretching forever. For modern minds, that sounds primitive. We're trained to believe ancient people were ignorant, superstitious, and confused. But here's the problem with that assumption. They were incredible observers. They tracked celestial movements with extreme precision. They predicted eclipses. They mapped stars accurately enough that we still use their constellations today. They understood cycles of the sun, the moon, the planets with no modern instruments. So why would they all independently imagine the sky as structured if it wasn't? One image keeps resurfacing throughout history, an image so strange it refuses to disappear, a traveler reaching the edge of the world and pulling back the sky like a curtain, and behind it, not endless space, but machinery, wheels, layers, fire, motion, not randomness, not emptiness, but design. To a modern viewer, it looks symbolic, metaphorical, artistic. But what if it's literal? What if it's a memory or a warning? Think about how we interact with screens today. We touch glass, swipe surfaces. Behind the interface is circuitry, code, structure. But to someone inside the screen, all of that would be invisible. What if the stars are pixels? What if galaxies are patterns? What if what astronomers call deep space is just resolution limits? Telescopes don't travel anywhere. They don't reach into space. They collect light. Light that arrives already filtered, distorted, and delayed. We reconstruct reality from data, numbers, graphs, algorithms. We never observe space directly. We infer it. And inference is fragile. Here's something most people never stop to question. Why do stars look the same size? Take Jupiter. It's relatively close. Take Sirius. It's over 8 light-years away. According to everything we're told, the distance in difference is so extreme the human mind can't even picture it. And yet, they look like dots, similar dots. We're told it's because stars are unimaginably bright, but brightness doesn't override perspective. Distance always wins. Always. Stand on a skyscraper and people shrink to specks. That happens over a few hundred feet. Scale that up to trillions of miles and logic breaks down. At those distances, objects shouldn't just look small, they should disappear entirely. But they don't, which leads to an unsettling possibility. Either our understanding of scale is wrong, or what we're looking at isn't distant at all. What if the lights in the sky are not faraway suns, but close elements embedded in a surface? What if depth itself is an illusion generated for the observer, just like in a game? When you walk toward the horizon in a virtual world, you never reach it. The environment stretches, loads, adjusts. It gives the impression of depth without actually being infinite. And if you never question it, the illusion works perfectly. Modern cosmology relies heavily on mathematics so abstract that no one can visualize it. That's not an accident. Complexity creates authority. If something sounds complicated enough, we assume it must be true. But complexity can also hide contradictions. Take the Big Bang. We're told everything came from an infinitely dense point, an explosion, and yet the universe we see is ordered, structured, governed by precise laws. Explosions don't create clocks, they create debris. So why does the cosmos behave like a mechanism? Why do planets move with predictable precision? Why do galaxies form stable structures instead of dissolving into chaos? The explanation is always gravity, but gravity itself is still not fully understood. It's a placeholder word for something we can describe mathematically but not fundamentally explain. At some point, you have to ask, are we discovering reality or just modeling the surface of something deeper? Ancient stories might hold clues, not because they're mystical, but because they were designed to preserve information. Stories are memory devices. They survive when textbooks burn. Across cultures, myths describe the sky as active, alive, moving, governed by beings or forces beyond human reach. The stars weren't just objects, they were participants. To modern ears, that sounds childish, but modern humans also believe reality is made mostly of invisible substances no one can detect directly. We're not as different as we think. If ancient people encoded astronomical knowledge into stories, what else did they encode? What if fairy tales weren't fantasy, but compressed data? Observations passed down in a form children could remember. Because if you want knowledge to survive thousands of years, you don't put it in equations, you put it in stories. And stories hint at cycles, repetitions, resets. Which brings us back to the most unsettling idea of all. What if this isn't the first version of the world? What if civilizations before us reached the same conclusions and hit the same limits? Maybe that's why the sky feels familiar, why we sense there's something off about reality, why questions about simulation resonate so deeply with people today. Because somewhere inside us, we recognize the interface. And this is only the beginning. The silence, the illusion, and the limits of human perception. There's a reason silence is more disturbing than noise. Noise can be explained. Silence forces you to imagine what's being hidden. When humans first started listening to the universe, we expected chaos, static, signals, something, anything. A whisper from the dark, a confirmation that we weren't alone. Instead, we heard nothing. Decades of scanning the sky, billions of dollars spent, antennas pointed in every direction, and still, absolute silence, not even accidental interference that couldn't be explained. Science gave this mystery a name to make it feel manageable. The Fermi paradox, a clean label for an ugly question. If the universe is so big and so old, where is everyone? But naming a problem doesn't solve it, it just makes it easier to ignore. The usual explanations are comforting. Maybe intelligent life is rare. Maybe civilizations destroy themselves. Maybe space travel is too hard. Maybe they're too far away. But all of those explanations assume one thing, that the universe is exactly what we think it is. And that assumption might be the real mistake. Imagine you're inside a simulation. You don't know it's a simulation. You build telescopes, you scan the environment, you search for other players. But what if the simulation only renders one player? In that case, the silence isn't mysterious at all. It's expected. Games don't waste resources rendering NPCs you'll never meet. Simulations don't generate complexity unless it's necessary for the experience. Everything you see exists because it serves a function. So, what is the function of the universe we observe? Modern astronomy tells us that most stars we see might already be dead, their light traveling for millions of years before reaching us. We're not looking at reality as it is, we're looking at history, outdated information. Which means our entire picture of the cosmos is delayed, indirect, and reconstructed. We live in the present moment but observe a past universe, a lagged feed. Just like a stream with latency. And if you were designing a controlled environment, that's exactly how you do it. Never allow real-time interaction with the outside. Only reflections, only echoes. Human perception itself is another problem. We trust our senses far more than they deserve. Vision feels reliable, but it's not. We see only a narrow band of light. We hear only certain frequencies. Everything outside those ranges simply doesn't exist to us. Not because it isn't real, but because we're not equipped to perceive it. A dog hears things you never will. A bee sees colors you can't imagine. Bacteria live entire lifetimes around you, completely unnoticed. They're not hidden. You're just blind to them. Now, scale that idea up. What if other forms of intelligence exist all around us, but outside our sensory bandwidth? Not made of matter the way we are, not bound to the same dimensions. To us, they'd be invisible, silent, non-existent, and yet fully present. That possibility alone collapses the Fermi paradox. The question isn't, where is everyone? The question is, why do we assume we'd recognize them? Humans have a habit of looking for mirrors. We search for life that looks like us, thinks like us, lives like us. Planets with water, oxygen, moderate temperatures. But that's not logic. That's narcissism. Life doesn't owe us familiarity. Even on Earth, life thrives in conditions we once believed were impossible. Boiling vents, frozen oceans, toxic environments, darkness. So why would the universe follow our expectations? There's another unsettling angle. What if the silence is natural? What if it's enforced? Every system that wants stability controls information flow. It limits contact. It isolates variables. That's how experiments work. And humanity behaves suspiciously like a test subject. We're intelligent enough to ask questions, but not powerful enough to escape. Curious enough to look up, but trapped enough to never reach what we see. A perfect balance. History shows us how easily perception can be manipulated. People like to believe they're rational, skeptical, immune to deception, but that confidence is dangerous, because the most effective manipulation doesn't feel like manipulation. In 1938, America learned that lesson the hard way. A radio broadcast interrupted regular programming. Urgent news, official voices, reports of strange activity. Panic escalated rapidly. People didn't stop to verify. They didn't question the source. They trusted the authority of the medium. Within minutes, a fictional alien invasion became emotionally real. People fled, armed themselves, prayed, cried. The world, for them, had ended. Nothing had actually happened. No aliens, no invasion, no danger. Just information presented convincingly. That event exposed something terrifying. Reality, for humans, is not what exists, it's what is believed. And belief is programmable. Now apply that to something much bigger. Centuries of education, textbooks, diagrams, official narratives repeated until they feel unquestionable. How many people have personally verified the size of the universe, the distance to stars, the shape of space-time? Almost none. We trust, we accept, we repeat. That doesn't mean science is fake. It means science is filtered, interpreted, framed by human limitations and assumptions. If a whole nation could be convinced of an alien invasion in under an hour, imagine what could be instilled over generations. The idea that space is infinite, that humanity is insignificant, that we are alone, that the universe doesn't care. Those beliefs shape behavior. They humble ambition. They discourage rebellion against the system. They make confinement feel natural. After all, why fight a universe that's infinitely bigger than you? But what if that belief itself is the cage? Ancient civilizations didn't see themselves as insignificant specks. They saw themselves as part of a structured cosmos, a layered reality with meaning and position. Modern humans, by contrast, are told they are accidents, random results of chaos in an uncaring void. Which worldview produces more control? When people believe they are meaningless, they don't ask dangerous questions. They don't challenge the structure. They accept their limits. And limits are essential in any closed system. Consider this. We've explored less than a fraction of our own planet. Vast oceans untouched, species undiscovered, entire ecosystems unknown. We don't even fully understand our own consciousness. Yet we speak confidently about the structure of the entire universe. That arrogance should concern you. Because maybe the silence we hear isn't emptiness. Maybe it's insulation. Maybe the interface only shows what it's programmed to show and hides what we're not ready to encounter. If the truth exists, why haven't we found it? And what happens if we do? There's a reason some doors stay closed for a very long time. Not because no one can open them, but because once they're opened, there's no going back. Human history isn't just a story of discovery. It's a story of selective discovery, of truths revealed slowly, carefully, and often only after society is psychologically ready to absorb them. Every time humanity has learned something that shattered its worldview, the reaction was never calm. It was fear, resistance, violence, denial. When we learned the earth wasn't the center of everything, people were executed. When we learned the planet wasn't flat, belief systems collapsed. When we learned time wasn't absolute, reality itself became unstable. Truth
has consequences. So now imagine this. Imagine that reality itself is not what we've been taught. Imagine that the universe is not infinite, not accidental, not neutral, but constructed, curated, managed. Would humanity be able to handle that, or would it break us? If we are inside an interface, then curiosity isn't just a trait, it's a threat. And every system that wants to survive neutralizes threats before they become dangerous. Think about how boundaries actually work. The strongest walls are not physical, they're psychological. You don't need to stop people from escaping if they never believe escape is possible. If humans are taught from birth that the universe is infinite, unreachable, and indifferent, then no one looks for an exit. No one questions the ceiling. No one asks what's behind the screen. They look outward forever, never inward. And that may be the point. The most disturbing possibility is not that we are trapped, it's that we are being managed gently, comfortably, with just enough mystery to keep us curious, but never enough clarity to let us break free. Consider how knowledge is distributed today. We live in the age of information, yet understanding is rarer than ever. Data floods us, but meaning is diluted. Every question leads to 10 contradictory answers. Confusion is not a flaw of the system, it's a feature, because a confused population argues with itself instead of questioning the structure. Now, ask yourself this. If there were anomalies in reality, glitches, inconsistencies, moments where the interface fails, what would they look like? They wouldn't be obvious, they'd be subtle, easily dismissed, explained away. Unidentified aerial phenomena that defy physics, quantum behavior that breaks causality, particles that exist and don't exist simultaneously, consciousness that cannot be located in the brain. Science acknowledges all of this and then moves on, not because it's unimportant, but because it's dangerous territory. The deeper you go, the closer you get to questions science was never designed to answer. Questions like, why does mathematics describe reality so perfectly? Why does the universe obey rules at all? Why does observation change outcomes? In simulations, observation is everything. Nothing exists until it's rendered, until it's measured, until it's needed. And quantum physics quietly admits this without fully confronting it. The universe behaves differently when watched. That should terrify you. Another uncomfortable truth is how fragile the human mind really is. We like to think we want the truth, but history suggests otherwise. When confronted with information that threatens identity, purpose, or meaning, humans don't adapt, they fracture, they panic, they deny, they fight.
The 1938 radio broadcast proved something fundamental. Reality is not defined by facts, it's defined by consensus. And consensus can be engineered. If humanity were suddenly told, undeniably, that reality is artificial, that we are not at the top of the hierarchy, not autonomous, not in control, what would happen? Governments would collapse overnight. Religions would split or radicalize. Economies would freeze. Social order would dissolve. Not because the truth is evil, but because we are unprepared. So maybe the silence is not emptiness. Maybe it's mercy. Maybe the system knows exactly how much we can handle, and maybe curiosity is allowed only up to a point. Look at how quickly discussions about reality get labeled: conspiracy, delusion, pseudoscience. The fastest way to kill a question is to mock it. That's not accidental, it's cultural immune response. Society doesn't attack dangerous ideas with arguments, it attacks them with ridicule. And the truly dangerous ideas are never debated openly, they're buried under noise. If there is an interface, it doesn't need guards, it needs belief. Belief that this is all there is. Belief that questioning is pointless. Belief that we are small and powerless. But there's a crack in that system: consciousness. No matter how much we learn about the brain, consciousness remains an anomaly. It doesn't behave like matter. It doesn't follow clear rules. It feels external, like a user, not a character. You don't experience your body from inside it. You experience it from behind your eyes, as if you're piloting it. That sensation is universal and deeply strange. If reality were purely physical, consciousness would be local, confined, predictable. But it isn't, which raises a final, terrifying possibility. What if consciousness doesn't originate here at all? What if bodies are interfaces? What if life is not generated but logged in? In that case, the universe isn't a prison, it's a container, a place where something non-physical experiences limitation. And if that's true, then death isn't annihilation, it's disconnection. Now think about how carefully death is framed in every culture: fearful, sacred, final, unknown, a perfect barrier to keep attention focused on survival instead of structure. Because a being that doesn't fear death is uncontrollable. If humans truly believed consciousness existed beyond this system, beyond this layer, the interface would lose its power. No fear, no obedience, no compliance. That may be the ultimate reason the truth is obscured, not because it's dark, but because it's liberating. And liberation is destabilizing. So, where does that leave us? Maybe the universe is exactly what we're told it is, or maybe it's a carefully maintained illusion. But here's the one thing that cannot be denied. The questions are increasing. The inconsistencies are piling up, and more people than ever are feeling that something is off. That feeling isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. You don't need to know the full truth to sense the interface. You just need to notice the edges, the limits, the silence. And once you notice them, you can't unsee them. If this reality is a system, then awareness is the first step outside of it. Not escape, not rebellion, just awareness. And that may be all that's required. If you've made it this far, you already know something has shifted. The questions won't stop now. They never do. So here's the choice. You can scroll away, return to comfortable explanations, and let the system keep humming quietly in the background. Or you can stay curious, stay uncomfortable, stay awake. Because if there is a truth behind the interface, it will only reveal itself to those who keep looking. If you're one of them, subscribe, not for answers, but for better questions. Because in a world built on illusion, questioning reality is the most dangerous act of all.